Mike Huckabee joins us now, the longtime governor and all-around sage, I would say.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm not sure about the sage
really.
part about that.
Well, yeah, you always have great, astute things to say
and you
on the
just
Saturdays.
landed from China.
Yeah, I got in yesterday. Been over there a couple of weeks, my wife and I, for our 40th wedding anniversary. Had a great time.
You look rested and ready anyway.
The jet lag doesn't bother me, and there's so many things to come back to talk about.
How did it play when you, I mean, I don't know if the news hit while you were over in China with the resignation of Secretary Shinseki, but I'm just curious you to weigh in on this as you were traveling across the world. How was it resonating overseas?
You know, I think people all over the world are fascinated by the fact that we're not taking very good care of our veterans, and I was reading international newspapers while I was there. But I thought the most interesting blog post that I have seen, you know how when a person leaves a government post, it's always, I want to spend more time with my family.
Right.
So Carney and Shinseki both leave yesterday, and one blogger pointed out, said, Shinseki is leaving so he can spend more time with his family waiting on him, and Carney is going to spend more time lying to his family. I thought it was a great insight into what their legacies will actually be.
But he leaves in his wake a Veteran Affairs Department that is an absolute mess. I was confused, though, by the president's comments yesterday, because help me understand this guy.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, he was pained by the fact that Shinseki, it was up to him to leave, as he put it, at the podium. And yet when asked who would fill in, you think maybe, well, the undersecretary who was right underneath him would come and step in because it's just one man. He didn't want him to leave. But he said it's a whole cultural problem. The whole area needs to be changed inside the Veteran Affairs. So why wasn't he forced out earlier?
Well, a couple of things. Tucker knows this because he's been in Washington a long time. Number one, this is all about symbolism, not substance. Nothing substantive was done yesterday. It was a symbolic walking of the plank so that Shinseki walks off. I don't think Shinseki knew when he woke up yesterday morning that he was out. I think he was out when he got a phone call, said your resignation would be deeply appreciated within the next 10 minutes because he made a speech yesterday morning acting like everything was just fine, and then, you know, an hour later, his head's rolling down the carpet of the White House. Clearly, this was something that had to be done just to make the symbolism. But the substantive problems at the VA are only going to be solved when someone goes in and actually does some managing, which is what's been lacking at the VA. And you don't change a huge institution by simply replacing somebody at the top. You go to the bottom. You go to the people who deliver the services and work your way from the bottom to the top rather than the top to the bottom. And most of the time, my experience in government was this. You'll find that the real bottleneck is in the middle. Those middle manager bureaucrats who have been there forever, and they plan to stay there forever, and their whole job is not taking care of the customer at the delivery end. It's making sure that they cover their own rear ends and keep their jobs. And so if you go to the people who deliver and say, tell me what you would do to fix this system. Tell me what's wrong with it. They'll give you some honest answers. And I'm talking about the people that make $10 an hour, not the people who get big bonuses.
All right.
That's who you listen to.
It was a big day in Washington. Aside from that, another man out, Jay Carney. So this administration promised to be the most transparent, but Carney was plagued with a lot of spinning he had to do with numerous phony scandals, as they called him. What do you predict is going to happen next?
Well, you know, the sad thing about the whole press secretary at the White House, how do you spin something that is so far from truth? Now, the only reason that Jay Carney got away with as much as he did was because he basically had an audience of very sympathetic people sitting there, with a couple of exceptions. Jonathan Karl of ABC, Ed Henry of obviously our channel, who was, you know, willing to ask tough questions. But for the most part, they sat there and listened and went along with the nonsense about it was about a video at Benghazi. Oh, no, it was a couple of low-level employees in Cincinnati that was the reason of the IRS scandal. Oh, no, the Department of Justice hasn't covered anything up. On and on, the spin continued. And it really wasn't spin. It was outright lie. They knew that what they were saying was untrue. And I think that's what makes it very difficult.
But it was so obviously untrue that it didn't seem to me like he was serving the interests of his boss.
Well, he wasn't, but I think he was doing what his boss and the boss's inner circle had told him to do. And let's go out and just tell it what we want to be the truth, not what is the truth. Yeah. You know, press secretaries have a tough job. Their job is essentially to sell the president. But their job is also to sell the truth and not to be so partisan but to be administratively focused. This was, I think, a press secretary, I've never seen one who was as partisan, who openly, publicly took on the other party, not just opposing viewpoints. It was more like a campaign press secretary than a White House press secretary.
And contemptuous. Anyone who dared ask a question was out of line and pompous and dumb. I mean, inept, really. Yeah. I mean, I don't think a single person watching the briefing thought, you know what, I'm really impressed by the Obama administration.
Yeah. You know, he did not have the ability to come across with a sense of warmth and candor. He was snarky and condescending to the press, and which in essence means he was condescending to all of us, the American taxpayers who pay for his salary.
He had some difficulty answering questions about Benghazi when pressed on those very issues. And meanwhile, Hillary Clinton has been slamming her critics about her Benghazi response in a brand new book. Some fact-checking, though, of her chapter on Benghazi seems to have left a few things out in her new book, Hard Choices. What do you have to say about this?
Well, the book is clearly an attempt to preempt a lot of the questions that she's going to face should she run. And I say should she run because I don't think it's an absolute foregone conclusion. But I assume, let's say at this point, she's leaning toward it, moving toward it, taking every step. She has to preempt a lot of these things so that when she's out campaigning, rather than having herself peppered with these questions, she can say, you know, I've already dealt with that.
Right.
I dealt with
Just
that
read my book.
Well,
yeah,
that's what Charles
book.
Krauthammer said. I mean, a number of months ago, he said that she's not going to have to answer for Benghazi on the campaign trail. And he says, here's further example of this being vetted. She'll be done. She won't have to answer for it.
She might not have to in the primary. That may be true because the Democrats run a tight ship and they control their message. But there is no way she's going to get away with that in the general election unless she has a Republican opponent who is absolutely just, you know, weak below the neck. And I just can't imagine that happening.
All right. Governor Huckabee sticks around for a story that you're not going to see anywhere else, and it's a shocking story, so don't go away. It's a secret memo showing the president's plan to use the military, our military, against Americans.